Hi, this is Funny Minds, and I'm your host, Lynn B.
I'm Edward Betts.
And today on our show, we welcome Frank King. Frank is a former writer for the Tonight Show. He's a comedian who deals and discusses suicide prevention and depression. He's a speaker for TEDx, which we'll talk about a little bit more. And he made a very bold statement that I was really taken a little back with. And he's like, I know what it's like to look down the barrel of a gun. That got me right there. Welcome, Frank King, to our show. And we have a lot to talk about.
No, I know what the barrel of my gun tastes like, not looking down the barrel. That would be if somebody was going to shoot me, then I would be looking down the barrel. Yeah, this is my eye teeth. I didn't see down the barrel. Hey.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Kids?
So, how did you get into comedy? How did you start writing on the Tonight Show?
Oh, that's easy. Fourth grade, 9 years old, told my first joke. Teacher was hysterical. Had to go to the teacher's lounge. She was laughing so hard, and I thought, I'm going to be a comedian. Let's see. 3 years of drama in high school, no good parts, no speaking roles. I thought, if I do stand up, I can write, direct, produce, and star in my own show every night. So I just so happens there's a talent show last semester, senior high school. I did it. I won. Of course, I beat an accordion player and folk dancer. It's not a big.
Okay.
And I told my mom I'm going to be a comedian. She goes, "You're going to college first. I don't care what you do when you get done. You can be a goat herder for all I care. But you're going to be a goat herder with a college degree." So went to UNC Chapel Hill, got a couple of degrees, and moved to the West Coast. Did my first open mic night. Halfway through my 5 minutes, I heard a voice inside my head say, "You're home." 18 months later, I said to my girlfriend, now my wife of 35 years.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. I'm going on the road to be a comedian. Do you want to come along? Thinking she'd go, hell no. She goes, yeah. So we gave up our job, our apartment, threw everything we could into my tiny little Dodge Colt, and we were on the road 2,629 nights in a row nonstop.
Wow. Oh my.
Yep. And in that process, and a long trip. In that process, Jay Leno was the permanent guest host of the Tonight Show. And Johnny would pull up on a Friday, Johnny Carson, Friday, say, hey, I'm taking next week off. So that meant Jay had to cover 4 nights, 4 monologues the following week. So he started hiring road comics under contract to send in jokes, to fax in jokes. They called us fax writers.
Okay.
So I was faxing 12 jokes a day. And when he got the job for real, he let most of the contract labor go, but kept some of us on. And I stayed, writing for him at a distance until he left for CNBC.
That's incredible.
Did you ever meet Johnny Carson?
Johnny Carson, no. Jay Leno several times.
Okay. Okay. Jay Leno cracks me up. I mean, I think he's so funny.
Yeah. But when I had my first open heart surgery and got into a regular room, the first person to call my regular room in the hospital was Jay.
Wow.
Hey, heard you got heart surgery. Good thing you didn't have it in LA. They take it out and leave it out.
Yeah, oh, that's amazing.
Nice guy. So I did comedy for about 10 years, 85 to 95. A little radio in there. And then when the comedy club started closing, my act was clean. So I jumped to corporate comedy after dinner, after lunch, conventions. Mm-hmm. Somebody said, what's the difference between a club comic and a corporate comic? About $5,000 a night plus travel. So, yeah, I'm no math major, but I could, So I did that until 2007, early 2008. Then the last recession hit, and bookings dropped off 80%, practically overnight. And my wife and I lost everything in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, and that's when I learned what the barrel of my gun tasted like.
Wow.
Yep. Spoiler alert: I did not pull the trigger. The audience usually laughs at that point. I say it's okay to laugh. A friend of mine came up after a keynote recently and said, hey, man, how come you didn't pull the trigger? And I go, hey, man, could you try to sound slightly less disappointed? That's how all that happened.
So that's how you got into using your comedy for depression, for suicide prevention, and
Yeah, what happened was after the conventions and conferences started happening again after the last recession, the meeting planners and speakers bureau said, Frank, we love you, but we can't pay you $5,000 just to be funny. You got to teach the audience something. Like, what am I going to teach anybody? So I read a book by a friend of mine, Judy Carter, called The Message of You, Turning Your Life into a Money-Making Speaking Career. And about halfway through, I thought, oh my gosh, I do have something to talk about because of my my brush with suicide, because I live with 2 mental illnesses, because depression and suicide run in my family. There are more nuts in my family than in a squirrel turd. I thought if I got some training in suicide prevention, I could keynote on that.
okay.
Not knowing how what a big deal suicide was in the U.S. 48,000 people
Really?
died here in the U.S. 1 every 11 minutes. And so, yeah, turned out to be a growth industry, unfortunately. So I've been speaking on suicide prevention. Oh, and the other hurdle I had was I've been a comedian 2.5 decades. Who's going to take me seriously about anything? So I thought, how am I going to convince them I can do something serious? And my wife suggested a TEDx talk. So I applied to one in British Columbia, and we live about 6 hours south of there, and got
okay.
my first one. And I just did my 9th one in Hamilton, Ontario. And I just booked my 10th one, which is going to be in San Diego in July.
Wow, that's fantastic.
So TEDx, technology, education, and design. What is the X? What is the X?
X means local.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a TED Talk, which is once a year in Vancouver, BC, like Bill Gates and Elon Musk. And then a local one, there's 3,000 of them in the world. The X means local. I almost said to you, the X, well, Stormy Daniels and I, yeah, it's the idea we're spreading his legs in this case. No, it's X means local. So I've done them all over the place.
So when you go to these meetings, you're talking about suicide prevention and depression and your own, you give them your own personal experiences.
Yeah, each TEDx is different in terms of the aspect, whatever aspect I'm talking about, mental health. But my origin story is always the same. But I'm talking about, for example, I did one in San Diego. I'm sorry, I did one in where was that? I don't even recall, but it's called Suicide: The Secret of My Success, Dead Man Talking, which is on chronic suicidal ideation. And did one in Durango, Colorado called Mental Health and the Orgasm, Treat Your Depression Single-Handedly.
Okay.
Only standing ovation. So it's one different aspect.
Tell you what, when COVID hit, obviously that really
increased,
especially a lot of kids. I noticed.
Actually, during COVID, the suicide rate generally went down a little bit, and except in a couple of demographics, late teens and college went up.
Right, because they had no outlet. I mean, they were too young to understand. They're so used to being with their peers every day, and then all of a sudden they're isolated, and it didn't go over too well in their age group.
No, I mean, I can't imagine at that age. I think back, it feels like a million years ago because I'm 55, I'm an old man. But at that age in time, you got up and you left your house. You didn't come home until it was dinner. I couldn't imagine being trapped in my house.
Yeah.
I don't care about cell phones and computers. Still, trapped in your house for that length of time is just not what we're here for.
Yeah, and school's not just about studying. There's all the extracurricular. The
exactly,
and the chess club and the debates team, and I mean all that socialization and
Yeah,
So,
and they had none of that. So it was very, very hard for teenagers through those couple of years. And now we're seeing the end results of a lot of what happened to them.
yep. And every now and then somebody asks me during the pandemic, because I live with mental illness, they say, how you handling the pandemic? And I go, look, here's the deal. I've had 2 aortic valve replacements, a double bypass, a heart attack, and 3 stents. I live with 2 mental illnesses. I came close to killing myself, and I lost to a puppet on Star Search. This is not the worst thing that's ever happened to me.
You lost to a puppet. You beat out an accordionist and you lost to a
puppet.
See, what goes around comes around.
Yeah. Yeah, afraid so. So, well, people with mental illness who are high functioning have a self-care plan. Things you do every day, so you can get out of bed in the morning, whether there's a pandemic or not. And so most of my mentally ill friends have they're high functioning. They have a self-care plan, as I do. And it's things you can control: diet, exercise, good night's sleep, meditation, a little medication, things that you're within your control, and you pretty much have to just let the rest of it go.
Yeah.
So we were well positioned to survive the pandemic.
Well, that's like, control. If you can't control it, you got to walk away from it.
Yeah.
You just have to. There's no two ways about it. And look, none of us are going to feel like happy and do a jig and be up and positive every single minute of every day of our life. We do. Everybody has their moments. It's how deep those moments go and how hard they are. And are you going to do something about it? When you know that you have those moments that you need help, and do something about it, as opposed to just burying it under a rug and pretending like nothing is wrong, nothing's happening. But you were lucky enough. Well, first of all, you're lucky enough with everything that went on with your heart, for God's sakes. I mean, like, you're very lucky to be sitting here. I feel very privileged to be talking to you right now. God really has a place for you on this earth.
Yes, as I often say, I am living on borrowed time and I'm upside down alone. So
Say there's no trading value.
Yeah, no trading value. Yeah. Yeah.
So do you?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
The other day I was walking the dogs. Some reason suicide crossed my mind, not the act of it, but just the concept. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, I'm 66. Why rush it? I haven't got that many years left. If I was 36 facing 40 years, all right, let's think about this. But 66, I mean, how long have I got? So I can hang in till whenever. So
absolutely.
Well, yeah. I mean, like, you're I don't want to say healthy. You're doing well, but you look healthy, with everything that you've gone through. And you're alive. There's things for you to do. There's a purpose for you in life. So you get out there and you do what you have to do, and you enjoy this part of your life, because once you're dead a long time. You're not going back. You're not doing anything. So
yeah, and people ask me occasionally, does telling your story over and over at conventions and such, my near suicide and so forth, does it trigger you? Does it upset you? And I go, no, you got it backwards, because it helps other people feel like they can, tell their story. It's very therapeutic. I have 2 mental illnesses. One is major depressive disorder, better known as depression. And the other one, and that's common. The other one is chronic suicidal ideation, which is rare. It means for people like me, the option of suicide is always on the menu as a solution for problems large and small. And I tell the audience, look, here's how small. My car broke down a couple of years ago. I had 3 thoughts unbidden. 1, get it fixed. 2, buy a new one. 3, I could just kill myself. It sounds silly, but almost every time I've spoken since 2014, there's been at least one person in the audience, sometimes more, that has chronic suicidal ideation. And almost always they have no idea it has a name. They think they're just some kind of freak.
Right.
All alone. I had a young woman come up after a college presentation She said, thanks for the keynote. I said, you're welcome. She goes, I got to tell you, it made me weep. How did it make you weep? She goes, you know your story about the car, get it fixed, buy a new and kill yourself? I go, yeah. She goes, I've been having those thoughts all my life. I didn't know that had a name. I thought it was just some kind of freak and all alone. And then you say that out loud, and I realized for the first time in my life, I'm not alone, and I wept. So that's one of the things that keeps me from killing myself, is that, I would probably, if I did, I'd probably take people like that with me who never had a chance simply to hear me speak.
Right.
Yeah. Wow.
Is that you?
That's me. That's I do master's bodybuilding at
That's incredible.
over 60.
Wow.
The tan's not mine, but everything else.
I didn't realize we were talking to a Greek statue.
You're really.
Yeah. I'm actually, my next contest is July, and I've been working out hard and dieting and keto and fasting.
Oh, you're doing a keto diet. Okay.
Yep. Since January 1st, 2018, I've been doing keto and then intermittent fasting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Currently, I'm doing, I eat 6 hours. I take 36 hours off of eating. So 36-6.
Yeah. I've done it, and I know a lot of people that have done it and it has worked.
Yeah.
That sounds interesting. I could lose, I could stand to lose 25 pounds. So you eat for 6 hours, or you eat something?
Yeah, you eat during a 6 hour period. Usually it's 2 meals. And then normally you take 18 hours and don't eat.
Okay.
So I eat from 6 in the morning, generally till noon. And then I don't eat again until 6 the next morning. So you get 8 hours of the fasting while you're sleeping, which is a bonus.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can have chicken broth with cream or MCT oil. You can have coffee with cream or butter or MCT oil. MCT is coconut oil.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, apparently it's one of my superpowers that I can not eat.
Yeah. I mean, that's really you just get used to it, though. Once you do it for a little while, it just gets easier, and you just get
into a rhythm of it. And
I do it too. Like I'm in front of the computer, and it's like sending out invitations to be on the podcast, or working on affiliations or sponsors, or this, that, and the other thing. Just started a YouTube channel. I'm gonna get into TikTok. So I could sit there the whole entire day, and the only time I get up is to go to the bathroom. I could but the one thing I don't do is I don't drink and I don't eat. The not drinking is the worst part. I really should. So now I have like a bottle of water there all the time. I don't care about eating. I'm just so focused on the computer and what I have to do and getting my job done, sending out thank yous, and so the eating part of it is easy, except for when I go away. When I come down here, then I want to eat. Or if I go away with somebody, I have to eat. But if I'm home, I don't have to eat. It's like really strange.
Should probably drink a lot of water. My urologist, actually my veterinarian, said to me, because I had a UTI, urinary tract infection, he said the solution to pollution is dilution. I mean, the more you drink water, beverages, like that, the better, the thing. That way the bacteria doesn't have a chance to, you're constantly flushing it out.
So you have a family history of suicide. Who's that?
Yeah, my grandmother died by suicide. My mother found her. My great aunt died by suicide. My mother and I found her. I was 4 years old. I screamed.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and it's gruesome. When we found her, it was.
Yeah, that's not something you really want to walk into a room or wherever you found. That's not something you want to do.
No, and so trigger warning. If you're easily triggered, this story is horror movie horrible. If you want me to share it, but I just want to warn your listeners, they may want to, if they're easily triggered, they might want to mute for 90 seconds.
Go right ahead. Whatever you want to say, we're welcome to hear.
Okay, I just don't want anybody, be blindsided by the story. After my mother found my grandmother 9 years later, she couldn't get hold of my great aunt on the phone, and so she got worried, given the family history, knew my great aunt was depressed. put me in the car. We drove over to my aunt's house, let ourselves in. Nothing out of place till we got to the kitchen. And then, strangely, everything that should have been in the refrigerator, an old Loctite refrigerator with a latch, was on the counter. The milk, the butter, the eggs, the cheese. And if you're old enough to remember, refrigerators back then didn't have a magnetic strip to hold the door closed. They had a latch.
Right,
So
right.
if you crawled inside and pulled the door to, there's no getting out.
Right.
And that's what my great aunt had done. She had crawled inside and pulled the door to die by suicide. And at some point had changed her mind and tried to claw her way out. And so my mother, not realizing all this, goes over and grabs a handle on the refrigerator, and I'm holding onto my mother's skirt tail. My mother swings the door open, and my great aunt falls out and pins me to the floor. So we're face to face, and she's got face frozen at that last moment of horror.
Wow.
Yeah, that's why I scream for days.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's kind of a tough.
For you at that age, I mean that's puts you in the land of PTSD.
Yeah,
you know.
And if you are already hardwired for depression, suicide, you're that close to an actual suicide, and I don't think you can get much closer. Then chances of you seriously thinking about it later in life go up. And of course, I did seriously think about it. So
right.
You ever hear of EMDR treatment?
Yes.
I've actually done it, and very effective.
That and here in Oregon now, with under psychiatrist's care, in microdose on psilocybin, which is the psychoactive ingredient in magic mushrooms.
Yep.
And apparently very effective on PTSD, depression, and substance abuse disorder.
Yep.
And they think it may not just be a patch; it may actually be a fix, kind of a rewiring. So as soon as I can find a psychiatrist who doesn't have a waiting list, I'm gonna go and give it a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've heard about that as well, and I've heard good things so far. Yeah, it's amazing how far we've come since growing up. And there was no ADHD when I was growing up. There was, I mean, I'm sure there was, but we just weren't aware of it.
It wasn't diagnosed.
It was just we considered it just a kid that was a big pain in the ass.
Yeah.
I probably had a little ADD when I was a kid, but as you said, there was no official name. The only name, he's got ants in his pants. That was
exactly.
Or he's X band boy, or he's the class clown, or he's
class clown. Yeah, I imagine a good number of comedians today were class clowns.
Oh that'd be me. I was the class clown.
Yeah. So,
but we've come such a far distance with mental health. I mean, as far as awareness, it's much more out in the open. People are more honest about admitting it or discussing it, and it's just a shame that we weren't that far ahead that those years.
But that's how we evolve in life. You evolve. You do a lot of things. Everything evolves every day. So, and 10 years from now, who knows what life is going to be like, and how easy maybe for some people things will be that were very hard as of today, so you don't know.
8 out of 10 people who die by suicide in the U.S. currently are men. And part of the problem is they were raised, as I was, big boys don't cry. So they don't reach out for help.
Yep.
And if they don't, then you can't help them.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And same thing with going to doctors. Guys don't like going to doctors.
Oh man. Yeah, no, men tend to ignore or not take care of their mental and physical health. A couple of friends of mine died of prostate cancer and colon cancer, and I would wager neither one of them ever had a PSA test or a colonoscopy, because if you catch either one of those early, they're eminently treatable.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, but if you wait till you got a pain in your lower back, and it's cancer in your bones because your prostate's the size of a grapefruit.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, men are very bad that way.
They are bad that way. Yeah.
Whereas
women
run for everything.
Well, and I'm like that in that, and I was discussing this with somebody else that had chronic physical ailment. I have heart disease and so forth. I'm seeing a doctor all the time. So somebody's looking under the hood all the time.
Yeah.
And you hear stories every now and then about, well, he went in for a chest x-ray and they took the x-ray and damned if he didn't have like an aneurysm, like, where the artery is blown up and it's about to explode. But because they were in for chest x-ray, they caught the aneurysm.
Yeah.
I had a friend who had a colonoscopy and an endoscopy, same time, young woman, young as in 35.
Right.
And because her doctor said, look, you're having the endoscopy, we might as well do the colonoscopy same time. They found polyps and, precancerous. So if she hadn't had the endoscopy, she wouldn't have had the colonoscopy. The cancer would have gone undetected until it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yep.
I know that's something that I'm very bad about. My doctor, every time I go for my yearly physicals, she says the same thing. And I'm like, but that's an exit only. And now it's like, everybody's like on me and I'm going to have to do it. I have to just relent and I just have to do it and get it over with. And
it's no fun. I have a tip for you. They normally give propofol or Versed, and fentanyl, and opioids make me wretchedly sick. Like I throw up like Lindsay Lohan after a 3-day weekend, and I don't want to mess around with fentanyl anyway. And so,
yeah, really,
when the doctor said to me, "We're going to give you Versed," no, he said propofol and fentanyl, and I said, "No, we are not." He said, "We're not." I said, "No, we're not. We're going to give me propofol and Benadryl, which kicks up the effectiveness of the propofol without the opioid in the mix." And he said,
that's very interesting.
Yeah, so I asked him, say, look, I don't need the fentanyl. Just have a Benadryl and propofol. And he said, and if we don't, I said, then I'm finding another doctor who'll do it because I'm after all my procedures, you have to advocate for yourself oftentimes and tell them what you will and won't do. And I know myself. I mean, I get so nauseous from opioids. I mean, I almost had to spend the night in the hospital after my first colonoscopy because I was throwing up so hard.
Wow.
That's how bad it is. And so I said, I'm not. Just give me some Benadryl.
Right.
The way I discovered it was there's the echocardiogram, where they do the sound on your chest. And it was an aortic problem, which I have. I was born with a malformed aortic valve. They do a transesophageal echocardiogram, which means they put it down your throat because the aorta lies right by the esophagus. And the thing they put down your throat is like a Black & Decker snake light. You remember that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And so that's when I discovered the first time I had propofol and Benadryl, and it worked very well. The first time I had Versed in 95, they didn't give me enough because they were just beginning to use it and they'd lost some patients because they gave them too much. So I remember every glorious moment of that 11 minutes with that thing down my throat.
Oh my God.
I sat up after she pulled it. She goes,
that would make you not want to go back and have anything done.
Yeah. She goes, Frank, are you okay? I said, yes. And I have a whole new respect for several porn stars.
Oh God.
My colonoscopy, I mean, the propofol was, all I kept thinking about was, this is the stuff Michael Jackson died with, taking, obviously. Yep. But it's remarkable how it works. I mean, it was just a matter of, it was instant. It was bam, you're gone, you wake up, and it's over. I mean, it was like,
I don't do well with any of that stuff. So that's another one of my fears.
It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all. I mean, the worst part about it was when it was over, just that feeling of the gas pains, like you just have so bad, your stomach hurts from gas, and you just fart it out.
Women are used to that, having babies, so
yeah,
a lot of air in there. Yeah. But
The propofol has a short half-life. It's out of your body pretty quick. You sober right up. It has an amnesia effect, so you may not remember what the doctor said after you got done. That's why you take somebody with you to drive you home and tell you what the doctor said several times over.
Oh God, I know. I'm really like considering it. I guess I'm gonna have to do it.
Yeah, it's it's
I have to break down, but
yeah, because they get the last time I had it done, they took 2 polyps out, non-cancerous, but polyps nonetheless. Had they remained there, and they said, look, Frank, we got the 2 polyps. Yeah, not going to be 10 years this time. It's going to be 5 years because now that you've had polyps, chances are they may come back. So,
Yeah, I had to say I had one. It was not cancerous, obviously. They just removed it and they said, yeah, you'll come back in 5 years instead of 10.
So isn't it 5 years for you? Aren't you?
About, yeah.
Maybe we could go as a family deal.
Yeah.
A twofer.
Colonoscopy holiday.
Yeah. Can we get a discount like BOGO? Buy one, get one?
Yeah, little BOGO.
So are you still doing like stand-up comedy, or are you doing any comedy clubs or?
Not comedy clubs, no, because they don't pay well. B, the audience is probably average 23 years old.
Okay.
And I'm 66. The only thing we have in common is an unpaid student loan.
Yeah. You mean we're not going to get forgiveness?
And also, I would hate to be starting comedy now because the audience is so hypercritical.
Yes.
They get their toes stepped on. You say the wrong thing, and they come after you online. So I still do comedy actually, but I only do it on cruise ships.
Oh.
Do comedy on cruise ships, and I do speaking, on land for conferences.
Yeah.
Right.
The suicide, and occasionally I'll say, look, I'll do the suicide prevention keynote in the morning, and I know you have an awards banquet that night. I'll do 45 minutes of stand up. So I often toss it in as added value. I'm there anyway. Might as well.
Sure.
Yeah, that's true. And you're doing podcasts, and which is a great thing to get your message out to a lot of people, which is great. I think it's wonderful.
I think the cruise ship.
Well,
yeah,
the great. I mean, that's one stone.
I don't have a podcast of my own currently, but I try to guest on the podcast at least twice a week.
Okay.
You guys do all the heavy lifting. You do the editing. You send me a link and an image and some swipe copy, and then I have a young friend of mine. I pay him to put it up on all my social media accounts.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I get the SEO, bump just like you guys do.
Sure.
So, yeah, I tell my speaker coaching clients, if you want to make money speaking and get good SEO, be found on Google, do a couple of podcast guest spots a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna start doing spots where we're gonna be on other people's podcasts just to push our brand and push us.
Can I make a suggestion?
They have.
Sure.
Yeah, what I tell my clients is I use a service called podcastguests.com.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great way because twice a week you get an email. Podcast looking for guests. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Someone that I met on LinkedIn, she's a producer, director, but she had suggested podcast guests. So, I'm gonna look into that and get started with them so that I actually what we do is I come down. I'm from Jersey, and we film down in Florida. So I come down every 10 weeks, and we do 3 days of podcasting. So we'll introduce, in those 3 days that we'll be the guests on some podcasts. So we'll do our own podcasting, and we'll be a guest on podcasts.
Yeah,
so,
and it's good for your, it's good Google juice.
Oh, absolutely. So do you take your wife on the cruises? Is she allowed to go?
Well, for the last 13 years, after the bankruptcy, she had to work because we needed health insurance.
Okay.
So she had a full-time job. That's how we covered the medical expenses. They had great health insurance. She just retired this past November.
Okay.
Because I got Medicare. And now she has Medicare, so we don't have to worry about the health insurance.
Yeah.
Right.
And she went on my very first cruise back in the day. And then she likes staying home, doesn't like flying. However, we live outside Eugene. So if I was going to do an Alaska cruise, we could take the train to Seattle, and she would never have to fly. We just take the train up, take an Uber over to the the port,
Oh,
and then,
okay.
reverse the process on the way home and never get on an airplane if you're going to the Alaska cruise.
So she's got a serious flying phobia.
And not just doesn't like to, Yeah, it's I was
So
in the
common though.
yeah, oh yeah, and I wrote a joke about it years ago. I'm in the bookstore, and there's all these books on conquering the fear of flying, and I thought to myself, you know what? If you're flying, it's working. Where's the book on fear of crashing? That's the one.
And the thing is, if it's your time, it's your time. If the plane's going down, there's nothing you're going to do about it. You're going down.
Here's my problem. What is not my time? What is the time of the guy next to me? What if I'm just
exactly right?
So, have you written any books? Do you plan on writing any books?
Yeah, I'm a co-author on 4 books on men's mental health.
Okay.
Yep, they're called Guts, Grit, and the Grind. It's an anthology. Each book has 12 guys, 12 stories. Each guy has an issue: bankruptcy, divorce, substance abuse disorder, and then they talk about how they're coping. And we hope that other men would pick it up and see their problem and think, well, if that guy did it, I can.
Right, right.
Men tend to take advice from men. And we made it look like an automobile owner's manual because figured maybe guys actually pick it up. And it's full of automobile metaphors. Like, don't you wish men had a check engine light on their brain, for their mental health? And the light comes on and you go to the mental health.
Really?
That puts him up on the rack. Well, Bob, of course you're depressed. You're 2 quarts low on serotonin. So they're funny, and they got exercises and stories. And anyway, we thought we'd be lucky to get 12 guys to be honest about their mental health. We ended up getting over 60 guys.
Wow.
Yeah, so what was going to be 1 book became 4 books.
Wow. So you have a series. That's great.
Yep. Yeah, my 12th grade English teacher would be flat freaking amazed. You have what? 4 books?
Yeah, but you know what? That's huge. I mean, it's
a great accomplishment.
It's definitely needed, and
yeah,
I would have to agree that there probably isn't enough. There's a lot of information out there, but not specifically geared towards guides to get guys out of their shell.
That's exactly why we did it, because one of my co-authors teaches suicide prevention to first responders, mostly men.
Okay.
And she went looking for a book on men's mental health to give to one of her students and couldn't find anything and thought, well, there's a vacuum. So she contacted another friend of mine, and the 2 women, contacted me, and they said, look, we're writing a book on men's mental health. Would you make it funny and add the metaphors? And I said, wait a minute. You 2 ladies are writing a book on men's mental health. Don't you think you might need, I don't know, an author who's a man?
Yeah.
Give it a little testosterone, a little credibility.
Yeah. You take it from a woman's point of view is a lot different.
Yeah. Well, and you know what the strange thing is, and that's probably not strange, it probably makes sense. We sell more books to women than we do to men. And I think it's because women have a man in their life, they just can't figure out how to help. And so
Wow.
I can see that.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's very interesting. You are very interesting.
Oh, thank you.
I've enjoyed talking to you today and listening to everything that you've had to say. It's really, really interesting.
Enjoy talking to you today.
I know.
I know.
Once you get past the purple hair, it's all
It's the Jersey. I'm a Jersey girl.
Jersey
what can
girl,
I tell you?
Could be worse. You could be from Brooklyn.
She'd be like,
it's 2 times 8. But no, absolutely. I mean, this is you're the type of guest that I love the most because you really give people a lot to listen to, good information, uh, and it really pertains to everyday life.
Right.
You know,
right. It does.
Yeah,
for a
well,
lot of
there
people.
maybe
a lot of
somebody
people.
listening to the replay that has chronic suicidal ideation, and up to this moment, they had no idea that had a name.
Right.
You know what? I mean,
Absolutely.
That's very important. It is important. And, I am going to put that in the description, so, because I do have a lot of young people that listen and to our podcast. So I'd like them to be aware that, so like you said, when you met that girl, she wasn't aware that there was a
No
need
idea.
to what was happening to her, and that's very important. And people, in all honesty, people need, I knew, I had a situation, I knew I needed some help. And it didn't bother me to call, get a reference, and see a counselor, see a psychiatrist who recommended a counselor, and it worked out great. It helped me to realize what was going on, what was happening, how to deal with it, and how to take care of myself and move on. And only because I said I need help. I need some help.
Part of the problem is
I really do need some help.
Yeah.
No, but in all
you didn't have to tell me
honesty,
that. No, but there's a stigma involved. There's a stigma surrounding mental illness, another stigma surrounding thoughts of suicide. So people are a little shy about. I didn't tell anybody I was mentally ill until my first TEDx at age 52. I came out on stage.
oh, really?
Yep. My wife didn't even know.
Oh,
At
So I
one
thought,
point,
well,
I worked for a hospital here in Tampa, and I was in case management. And for a period of time, I would work on people coming into the hospital that needed to be admitted inpatient for psychiatric. So I had to deal with the RNs from the insurance companies and go through their case study to see if they meet qualifications to be inpatient. And the one word that you would say that would automatically get them in was suicide ideation.
Yep.
That was the key. If you could say a million things, that they're thinking about this, they're doing this, the crayons are talking to them. It's the sky's the limit for what you hear. But the minute you hear the words suicide ideation, that's like drop it. It's over. Put them in.
Yep.
They're going inpatient. So it is a very strong, suicide ideation is a thing, and you making more people aware of it,
is wonderful.
It's
wonderful. I really think it's a great thing.
Well,
it's tough to talk about, but it's an all day, every day for some people. That battle it.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the tip: if you go to the hospital, you're having a psychotic break, or you're having a bipolar episode, and you go to the emergency room and you're waiting and waiting. My suggestion is, because I've had a heart attack, I know this works. When the nurse asks you what's wrong, well, I think I'm having a psychotic break, and I do believe I'm having a heart attack. Those two words, heart attack, there is no waiting. They give you your own little triage unit.
Yeah. Yeah. Then all of a sudden everything is stat.
Yeah, exactly.
You
want your own little team, just drop I think I'm having a heart attack.
And by the way, it's the big one. It's the big one, Red Fox. I'm coming.
Yep.
But it's been a pleasure speaking with you today.
Oh, my pleasure.
I really am very happy that you accepted the invitation and to come on the show. And for all of our listeners, again, this is Frank King. Please look up his books. Listen to what he has to say. Listen to the episode. You probably be very educated in a lot of different areas, and maybe there's someone out there that you're going to reach. And if you reach only one person, it's one of the most important things in the world.
Yes, and if you're looking for me online, just type in the mental health comedian, and I'll come up.
Okay. The mental health comedian.
The
Yep.
mental
Nice.
health community. I like
Nice and
that.
easy.
I like that. I like
Yep.
that title. That's really a great title.
Yeah,
Well,
all my
Frank,
social, all my
again,
social.
I thank you.
Oh yeah, thank
And
you guys.
you know, we are Funny Minds, and you can look us up, funnyminds.com. And if you go on the website, you'll see all the platforms. We're on video on Spotify and YouTube. Everything else is regular audio on all the regular platforms. You will see our store. We have a store where we sell silly little things that say Funny Minds. And there's two organizations that are very, very dear to us, and that is Women's Breast Cancer and St. Jude's Children's Hospital. So you'll see a big purple bow there, and if you can, please donate to those two organizations. We would be very happy if you could help, because they need help in so many different ways, and they've done so many wonderful things. And you'll find our emails on there. If there's anything you have to say, you like, you don't like, maybe there's someone you know that would be great being on our show, just drop us a line. We listen to everything everyone has to say. So
And
with that,
Can I close it? Can I close it out like a comedian? I'm gonna close it out.
Yeah,
go ahead.
do it.
Go ahead.
All right, here we go. If you enjoyed this podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe. And tell your friends. If you did not enjoy this podcast, we hope you have no friends.
That's funny. That was great, Frank. That was great. So to all of my audience out there, be happy, be safe, be kind, and always remember to smile and laugh, because laughter is the best medicine. So I say goodbye, and I thank you again, and you have a wonderful day. Bye, Frank.
See you guys.
Be well.